Coming up on our newscast tonight. North Korea and the U.S. will hold more working-level talks until the actual day of their second summit on February 27th and the 28th. The two sides are hoping to make further progress on their joint statement, namely on bilateral ties and denuclearization. In 2017, the Stellar Daisy, a South Korean ore carrier, sank in the South Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Uruguay. Yesterday, the data recorder of the vessel was found, raising hopes the cause of the tragic accident is finally unveiled. The Korea Meteorological Administration issued preliminary snowfall warnings for major cities including Seoul and Incheon, with official warnings to start around midnight. Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces are expected to receive around 7 centimeters of snow. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Choi. Less than 10 days to go before the second North Korea-U.S. summit, Pyongyang and Washington are expected to continue working together on drafting a joint statement until the very last minute, as in the actual date of the hotly anticipated event. Park Ki-jun starts us off.
It's hoped North Korea and the U.S. can make further progress this week on their joint statement for the upcoming Hanoi summit. U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun and his North Korean counterpart Kim Hyok-chol will meet in the Vietnamese capital in a bid to narrow their differences. Biegun previously said the two sides already set the summit agenda during their working-level talks in Pyongyang earlier this month, and that they will try to overcome any differences of opinion at the follow-up negotiations. Kim Jong-un and President Trump agreed in Singapore last June to establish new bilateral relations and work toward establishing peace and denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. Biegun and Kim Hyok-chol are to focus on specific ways to implement that promise. At the core of that is believed to be the verified shutdown of the North's Yongbyon nuclear complex, which produces the essential materials for making nuclear weapons. But the U.S. may demand additional denuclearization steps if North Korea is to get at least partial sanctions relief.
Yongbyon facility was already on the agenda a decade ago, and it's kind of obsolete now. So Trump administration may be asking for more, seeking for more from North Korea in return for economic rewards and some degree of easing sanctions on North Korea.
Watchers say the more specific the statement, the more likely the summit will be a success. As a result, it's possible Pyongyang and Washington may continue their working-level talks right up to the day of the summit until they find a middle ground that satisfies both sides. Park Ki-jun, Arirang News.
Keeping our sights fixed on the host country, Pyongyang's protocol chief is checking out various spots around Hanoi. The places the official visits provide hints as to how the North Korean leader will make his way to Vietnam and where he'll drop by during his stay. Here's Oh Jung-hee with the details.
Kim Jong-un will reportedly arrive in Hanoi on February 25th, a couple of days ahead of his summit with President Trump. For his journey from Pyongyang to Vietnam, two options are available: plane and train. It's likely that Kim Jong-un will take his personal jet Chanmae-1 and land at Noi Bai International Airport. Or he could choose a safer option and use a Chinese plane, just like he did for the Singapore summit. Either way, it'll take about 3.5 hours from North Korea to Vietnam by air. But it's also possible Kim could take a special train. Over the weekend, the North's protocol chief Kim Chang-sun visited Vietnamese city of Lang Son on the border with China and had a quick look at the rail tracks. This has led to speculation that Kim Jong-un may travel to Lang Son by train and then travel to Hanoi by road. That would take about 60 hours. As this will be Kim Jong-un's first state visit to Vietnam, Kim will meet the Vietnamese president and visit Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum to pay his respects. Ho Chi Minh had two summits with Kim Il-sung, the late former North Korean leader and Kim Jong-un's grandfather. But considering Kim Jong-un's strong will to develop the North's economy, it's highly likely that Kim will tour around spots that symbolize Vietnam's economic development. Reuters reports that he'll visit the manufacturing base of Bac Ninh and the industrial port city of Hai Phong. It's possible that Kim will visit Bac Ninh because Pyongyang's protocol chief stopped over there and reportedly visited Samsung Electronics' smartphone factory on Sunday. Other possible stops are the Vietnam Academy of Agricultural Sciences and Hoa Lac High-Tech Park, where the North's Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho visited last year to study Vietnam's Doi Moi economic reforms. Meanwhile, Kim is highly likely to stop by at the famous tourist destination Ha Long Bay to learn how to boost the North's tourism industry. It was also visited by his grandfather in 1964. Woo Jung-hee, Arirang News.
So what about the people of the country that will play host to the summit? How do they feel about being an integral part of the globally anticipated event? Our Lee Ji-won took to the streets of Hanoi to hear directly from the locals.
Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam with a population of 7.7 million, has been announced as the host city of the second North Korea-U.S. summit by President Donald Trump earlier this month. The news was widely covered by Vietnamese newspapers and televisions, and many local citizens are eagerly anticipating this historic event.
A lot of us are thrilled and proud to be hosting this very important event. It will be a good opportunity to promote our country to the world.
I think the summit is being held here because both countries have trust in us. Hosting the event will be great for our country's economy, and I hope we can contribute to the peacemaking process of the region.
There could be some inconveniences during the summit period, but if the U.S. and North Korea can develop their ties and make great achievements, we are more than welcome.
But there are also those who are completely unaware of the news because they've been too busy going about their daily lives.
It's my first time hearing such news. I don't have much time to watch television or read news.
Meanwhile, a number of key locations that could play a role in the summit are quietly making preparations of their own. JW Marriott Hotel Hanoi, where President Donald Trump is widely expected to stay, appears to be making itself ready for the arrival of a high-profile guest. There was a major cleanup of the surrounding gardens, and holes have been dug around the hotel, possibly to plant more trees. The North Korean embassy is also undergoing minor renovations. Even on the weekend, workers were painting the walls of the building and cleaning the fences. The bulletin board just outside the embassy was also updated with the latest news out of North Korea. All of these changes may be in preparation for a possible visit by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during the summit. The security around the premises wasn't as high as reported by other South Korean media outlets. But with less than 2 weeks left to go and the protocol teams of North Korea and the U.S. working on the final arrangements, more visible developments are expected to occur within the next few days. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News, Hanoi.
The second Kim-Trump meeting will result in big progress that's coming from President Moon Jae-in during a sit-down with leaders of South Korea's 7 major religions. He also expressed hope that the event will lead to specific and visible steps towards denuclearization.
다음 주에 열릴 제2차 북미 정상회담에서도 비핵화와 북미 관계 정상화에서 큰 진전이 있을 것으로 전망을 합니다.
The South Korean leader also called for the support of all religious groups for peace on the peninsula and said next week's summit will hopefully put some speed on the agreements reached last year in Singapore. Moon also asked the participants at today's meeting at the top office to work to unite the Korean people ahead of the 100th anniversary of the March 1st independence movement. He highlighted that historic demonstration in 1919 was originally put together and staged by leaders and followers of the faith. President Moon Jae-in believes his American counterpart is quite eligible for the Nobel Peace Prize, having repeatedly stressed that he made significant contributions to peace on the peninsula. According to the nation's top office, the South Korean leader has not personally nominated Donald Trump for the award, and since the nomination deadline has already passed, Moon might not be able to nominate him. Those comments come after the American commander-in-chief revealed that Japan's prime minister wrote to the Norwegian Nobel Committee nominating him for the prize. The remains of a British war hero arrived today in South Korea to fulfill his wish to be buried in this country, which he bravely defended in the war that divided a nation in two. The remains of William Speakman, who died at age 91 last year, arrived at Incheon International Airport Monday afternoon, along with members of his bereaved family. A ceremony was held at the airport. President Moon Jaein sent a message of condolence, saying Korea will never forget Speakman's noble sacrifice and gallantry. He said all veterans of the war will go down in Korean history, and their blood and sweat will never be in vain. The late soldier was a holder of the Victoria Cross and the first-class Taegeuk Cordon of the Order of the Military Merit, the most prestigious military awards given by Korea and Britain. William Speakman's remains will be buried on Tuesday at the UN Memorial Cemetery, located in the southern port city of Busan. South Korea has been looking to boost its arms sales to the Middle East region. In support of such efforts, Seoul's defense chief took part in an international exhibition and conference in the UAE to rub shoulders with influential figures there. Kan Young-woo has the highlights from his networking trip.
The 2019 International Defense Exhibition and Conference opened in Abu Dhabi on February 17 local time, with some 1,500 defense firms from around 70 countries taking part in the biannual event. The exhibition also brings together top military officials from the Middle East region. This year, South Korea's Defense Minister Jonguns went to the exhibition to support the nation's defense firms' efforts to build networks with not only the host nation, United Arab Emirates, but also its neighboring countries.
When it comes to the development of weapons systems, no matter how good they are, they cannot be exported unless there is cooperation among countries. That's why the South Korean government is fully backing our firm's efforts to export arms to the region.
On the sidelines of the event, Minister Jung sat down with his UAE counterpart, Mohammed Ahmed Al-Buardi, and discussed ways to strengthen bilateral cooperation by improving exchanges in terms of military personnel, training, and cybersecurity. Minister Jung also held separate meetings with delegation leaders of Middle East countries, including Oman and Egypt, to discuss bilateral arms industry cooperation. Seoul's defense chief also met with his counterpart from Greece, Evangelos Apostolakis, and the two sides agreed to put more efforts to strengthen their military exchanges by pledging to work towards signing an arms industries memorandum of understanding in the near future. Around 30 South Korean defense firms, including Hana Defense, Korea Aerospace Industries, and LIG Next One, are participating in this year's event, slated to continue until February 21st local time. Kan Young-woo, Arirang News.
A team of ocean explorers have found the voyage data recorder of the Stellar Daisy, a Korean ship that sank in the South Atlantic off the coast of Uruguay back in 2017. Authorities are hopeful it will help uncover what caused the tragedy. However, according to our Che Si-young, it's not going to be a quick process.
South Korea's foreign ministry said Monday that part of the Stellar Daisy's hull and its voyage data recorder were found Sunday in the South Atlantic Ocean by the American exploration company Ocean Infinity. On March 31, 2017, the South Korean ore carrier sank off the coast of Uruguay while on a voyage from Brazil to China. As a result, a total of 22 of crewmen, including 8 Korean nationals, are considered missing. It's a massive ship with an overall length of 312 meters and a beam of 58 meters. Ocean Infinity salvage ship the Seabed Constructor arrived at the site where the Daisy was believed to have gone missing and found the ship just 3 days later. The firm was employed by South Korea last year. The data recorder is being transferred to a port in Uruguay and will be analyzed by the South Korean Coast Guard. The authorities expect the recorder will reveal what caused the ship to sink, but a full analysis will take time. Meanwhile, the American salvage ship will continue its search for the Stellar Daisy's main body. Che Si-young, Arirang News.
The government laid out new measures to cancel the debts of people in vulnerable groups, such as recipients of basic livelihood security. It involves readjusting the levels drastically and even getting rid of the remaining debt of those who are faithful in repaying them. Korini fills us in on the relief plan.
It's good news for people in Korea who've been struggling to pay a relatively small debt. The Financial Services Commission and the Credit Counseling and Recovery Service announced on Monday new debt forgiveness programs for marginalized groups. The Credit Counseling and Recovery Service is an organization established in 2002 to support the financial recovery of low-income families. Specific measures include debt relief for those who receive the government's basic livelihood security payments, recipients of disability pensions, seniors and low-income people who've been unable to pay a small debt for more than 10 years. However, there are some conditions. The total principal of the debt cannot exceed around $13,000, and the borrower needs to repay in a faithful manner, that is, make their promised payments for at least 3 years. This is on top of the government's existing measure, providing partial debt relief up to 90%. For instance, if a basic livelihood security recipient owes $10,000, the government reduces the debt by up to 90%, leaving principal of just $1,000. And if this person pays back half of that faithfully for 3 years, then the remaining $500 is canceled automatically. The Financial Services Commission says this will take effect in June, after related agreements from the Credit Counseling and Recovery Service are revised. This latest measure is part of the Moon administration's efforts to build an inclusive nation by helping low-income people get out of debt and improve their quality of life. 고린이 아리랑 뉴스.
A group of advisors to President Moon are meeting tonight with the nation's labor unions to hopefully reach a consensus on maximum weekly hours under a new flexible work system. The Economic, Social, and Labor Council officials are tasked with helping the parties concerned agree on readjusting, or rather adjusting, the system, which currently limits weekly work hours to 52 over a 3-month period. Starting this year, the heads of companies with 300 or more employees face jail time or fines if they violate the weekly cap. The limits, however, have been opposed by some because of what they say are the specific needs of their industries. Korea's outbound shipments of agri-food products reached a record high in January thanks to increased exports of strawberries, kimchi, and instant noodles, to name a few. Fresh products, including items like paprika and ginseng, jumped 14.4% on year, 3.9% for processed foods. The ministry said strawberries sold well in the major export markets, including Hong Kong, Singapore, and Vietnam. Outbound shipments of ginseng spiked thanks to increased demand as a Chinese New Year gift. The Moon Jaein administration has been working hard to secure future growth engines, one of them the hydrogen economy. Kim Il-sung explains what it is all about and also zooms in on some factors that could make or break the sector.
Hydrogen economy refers to the transition to hydrogen as an energy source in place of fossil fuels like coal, gas, and petroleum. Hydrogen makes up about 75% of the mass of the entire universe. It can be burned to produce heat or combined with air in a fuel cell in a reaction that produces electricity. The byproduct of that reaction is water, so it's eco-friendly. The Moon administration's vision of hydrogen economy announced last month is meant to boost the production of hydrogen-powered cars and fueling stations to help drive economic growth.
Korea imports more than 90% of its energy from abroad. Hydrogen is a clean energy source and it can help Korea improve its energy security. On top of that, Hyundai Motor is the first company in the world to have produced hydrogen-powered cars, giving Korea a competitive edge in leading the development of hydrogen-powered electric cars.
The government's plan is to broaden the use of hydrogen fuel cell batteries from cars to other areas like heating and industry, and to generate 15 gigawatts of power from hydrogen by 2040. It expects the transition to hydrogen economy to create around $38 billion in economic value and 420,000 jobs by 2040. But for that to happen, experts say advances in technology and cost efficiency are key.
Countries like the US and Japan invested in hydrogen-powered cars in the early 2000s, but investment has fallen since then because the technology is very difficult. Many global automakers are now betting on electric cars. For hydrogen fuel cell electric cars to be used widely, there needs to be technology to create and store clean hydrogen energy, and the costs have to come down.
Currently, the government subsidizes nearly half the price of hydrogen-powered cars, which cost more than $62,000 each. On top of bringing down production costs, deregulation and private sector investment to build infrastructure like hydrogen fueling stations will be important, which would require detailed plans and policy consistency. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Local scientists are taking nuclear fusion technology to new heights. They've developed a so-called artificial sun that reached astonishing temperatures. Woo Soo-young sheds light on this breakthrough.
In 1.5 seconds of sheer magnetic force, South Korea's artificial sun reached record plasma temperatures, 7 times hotter than the actual sun, taking us closer to a world that runs on unlimited green energy. The K-STAR tokamak, a magnetic fusion device at the National Fusion Research Institute, sustained a plasma ion temperature of more than 100 million degrees Celsius for the first time in the world. Tokamaks aim to create and harness energy from atomic fusion, which occur in superhot plasma, replicating the natural process that powers the sun billions of times a second.
A plasma ion temperature of at least 100 million degrees needs to be generated to smoothly run the nuclear fusion process. We've operated K-STAR for 10 years, and we've now marked this milestone temperature for about 1.5 seconds, showing we've obtained the technology to maintain this temperature for longer durations hereafter.
The achievement comes as scientists around the world are looking to develop nuclear fusion devices in order to create clean and sustainable sources of energy. Tokamaks are designed to create and control plasma from fuels like deuterium and tritium, which are considered eco-friendly and readily available as they're extracted from water and lithium and are carbon-free. Also, nuclear fusion produces almost 4 million times more energy than burning fossil fuels, for which they're seen as an ideal source of clean and affordable power for generations to come. To explore the potential, Korea's state-of-the-art fusion device has been part of global efforts to build the largest tokamak in the world called ITER. With experiments set to begin in 2025, ITER's plasma temperature needs to reach at least 150 million Celsius for further research on developing industrial and commercial fusion reactors. To contribute to this goal, K-STAR developers hope that the Korean tokamak will be able to maintain the 100 million Celsius level for at least 10 seconds by the end of this year. Woo Soo-young, Arirang News.
The central region of the nation, including Seoul, are set to experience heavy snow starting around midnight local time. Affected areas are under preliminary snow warnings, with up to around 10 centimeters expected to pile up in some parts. Jo Sung-min has more on the forecast.
South Korea's central region is expected to see heavy snowfall on Tuesday. The Korea Meteorological Administration said the snow will start a little after midnight Monday and continue until 3 p.m. on Tuesday. In a few areas, expect up to 10 centimeters of accumulation. The KMA has issued preliminary snowfall warnings for major cities including Seoul, Incheon, Daejeon, and Sejong, with official warnings to start around midnight. Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces are expected to get the most snow, generally around 7 centimeters. Meanwhile, up to 5 centimeters of snow could be seen in some areas in southern provinces, including Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do. The agency also said the temperatures in central regions tomorrow morning are expected to drop by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius, and that the amount of snow could depend on how cold it gets. It advised early commuters in central cities to be extra careful and take public transportation to work because there's a high chance the roads will have frozen over by morning. Jo Sung-min, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle back at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, with what Jo Sung-min just reported, it looks like commuting is going to be quite challenging tomorrow.
Yes, Daniel, now especially if you are in the central areas and in Gangwon-do and Chungcheong-do provinces, where up to 7 centimeters of snow could fall mainly in the morning hours. And if you are in the southern regions, you will receive some rain. Now, as the nation lingers under wet conditions all day long, Tokyo is also gearing up to receive some rain, while Beijing will see partly cloudy skies. And rain and snow should taper off before nighttime, so you won't have too much difficulty in celebrating the traditional 정월 대보름 of the year's first and the brightest full moon. The moon will appear before 6 p.m., but it will appear the biggest after midnight through somewhat cloudy skies. And Seoul will begin the morning tomorrow at 0 degrees Celsius, while the southern areas will be milder. And Seoul will reach up to 3 degrees during the day, and Gwangju will hit 8, and Busan makes it into the teens. And later this week, most of the highs will hit to the teens. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for you on tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. As always, thanks for staying with us.